Well, first and foremost, thanks for my fan over there. I just let the bandana bandits turn up their microphones so they can get their $200 from George Soros today, okay? But to the real people here, ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the organisers, Sandy and Lee, and to our previous speakers for their commitment to this most important cause, which perennially is the protection of Australian children and thus our inheritance as a country. Our esteemed speakers have been thorough in addressing the details and branches of the Unsafe Schools program. So here now I will address its cause, as our esteemed speaker Malcolm did before me. As an independent conservative, I am not against some of the values of the left per se, and welcome those views as essential and intrinsic for healthy political debate in our country. My mandate, as of many on the right, is that of freedom of speech and the freedom to hold political views that we can discuss in a healthy and mature way, as is democratic in any rational country. However, in the last few years, particularly, we have seen an encroaching from a biased, left-wing and globalist, media-dominated, Soros and deep state-backed worldview that not only endangers freedom of speech, but more recently, as I myself have personally been a target of, a policing policy that endangers the very freedom of thought in Australia. An Australian Minority Report type scenario where Queensland police were sent into my family business on the Sunshine Coast for sending one too many emails to government officials. But that's another issue entirely that I will not be getting into today. Ladies and gentlemen, the Western world is at war, unlike anything we have seen in recent history, because it is as pervasive and militarised psychological warfare that touches every aspect of our daily lives. So pervasive that we largely are not even aware of it. Thank you. The battlefield consists of man-made and manufactured protisms and ideological boundaries disguised as freedom and liberty, but really designed to cause division, subversion, separation, and the fundamental erosion of family values, community, and thus national unity, thus achieving its end goal of national and international destabilisation in order to create a greater demand for corporate and centralised state-based government control. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the modus operandi of the globalists. A mandate where armies are no longer required to subdue, when our children in the classroom are being weaponised against the family unit by demonising traditional Christian family values, which I would argue are not in fact Christian at all, though actually have deeper roots in Platonic and aesthetic observations of nature through the lens of personal and collective self-organisation in evolution to achieve a higher form. But that's science, and I wouldn't expect the masked bandits to understand that. That is to say that human virtue is not the realm of the church alone, but the realm of the self. However, where virtue heralds from at this point, it matters not. What matters is that these virtues, which are clearly articulated in the New Testament, truly lay at the heart of a civilised society. About this, most conservative amongst us here today will agree. You've been silent now, good. In fact, it is by these very Christian virtues that our nation was founded and our constitution given form by our colonial roots in England. Through letters patent, our executive power to govern flows through and from Elizabeth II by the grace of God. Under the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland and our other realms and territories, the Queen, head of the Commonwealth, defender of the faith, to all lords spiritual and temporal, and all other subjects whatsoever to whom these presents shall come. That is to say, in simple terms, look at the police. Over there, right now, the Queensland Police. If violence were to break out, their authority in Queensland has the final say by points of their guns. But more importantly and crucially, look at the crown on their shoulders, their badges and all of their uniform. Because our executive power in Australia is ordained still in 2018 by the Crown's writ under God and the prescribed coronation of Australia's sovereign executive, Queen Elizabeth II. All common people are commanded to swear by the laws enshrined in the Holy Bible, as which is endowed our Australian law under the Commonwealth by God at the stone seat of Westminster Abbey, sealed on the great date 2nd of June 1953. That is to say, thank you ladies and gentlemen, that in Australia, to this day, until we are made a republic governed by our own terms, God still has final say. And we are governed by divine law, first and foremost. Let this not be forgotten by the sodomites. Sodomites in our universities that include the pro-child adult love relationships, so-called Professor Gary Dowsett, who take their reference material from Alfred Kinsey's so-called academic findings from one of the most notorious and heinous child abusers on record. The Unsafe Schools program then has to hide to call this pedophilic subterfuge education. And most of our political class are not even capable of realising it. Ladies and gentlemen, this weaponisation of our children by the university class intellectual assassins erodes the most important trust a child has, that of his or her biological mother and father. This, in turn, inevitably will send our culture into turmoil and decay. We are seeing this already with the catastrophic rise in dangerous transgender surgery, which is akin to physical and genital mutilation, an unrecoverable decision. As a result, this new modern ideology, I would argue, is more dangerous and damaging than a vehicle, than any heavy tank, than any FA-18 fighter jet, and is just as indiscriminate as the casualties that it takes. The stakes are very real as our globalist enemies attempt to co-opt our Australian democracy at the UN level, as Malcolm articulated so well. And they do this by means of stealth in a long-term, multi-generational campaign that is well and truly already underway in Australia. The cost of losing this war, this social war, would be devastating to our lucky country and breed a corporate communism which is at the heart of the agenda of intellectual frauds like Roswald. This communism is as insipid as it is seductive to our young, as it is difficult to actually point at. as we go about our daily, everyday lives of bills, home loans, hair appointments and barbecues. But I assure you, it is here with us even now as I speak. The wolf in sheep's clothing, as it comes disguised as inclusiveness, anti-bullying and human rights, and a new so-called democracy. But democracy, I assure you, it is not. The most important thing I want to leave you with today, ladies and gentlemen, is this. This is not a left-wing or leftist agenda. Sorry to disappoint you, masked bandits. In fact, much to the left's ignorance, they themselves have been co-opted into a self-righteous frenzy by deep state media actors within the Five Eyes partnership that care nothing for the left or right. To these actors, we are but chattel in a game of marbles to ensure global control in a new world order that thankfully has proved considerably elusive to them thus far. Their game is carefully strategic. Control the media narrative, control the left's debate, control the right's debate. Take care not to rock the boat and ensure that there is more than enough fuel that both sides continue to rage at each other, blaming the other side for the ills of our nation, all while keeping our eyes firmly averted from the assets in Canberra, who I assure you govern this country by proxy. These people are the wolves in the throne room. They have no allegiance but to themselves. They believe in eugenics and they have no mercy for our children. Listen up and you might learn something. The S, however, reveals their true nature as scared criminals, too afraid to take the battle out into the open against their real adversaries, but pay these idiots $200 a day. But their real adversaries, I assure you, are us. I should know, because it is I that has taken one of the most important criminal investigations in Australian history, the cold case of the Sydney Nugan Hand Merchant Bank in Australia, an irrefutable proof of its ties to CIA cocaine trafficking, perpetuated by 5 powerful men, which included George H.W. Bush, the 41st President of the United States of America. I sit on hard evidence, much to the tinfoil hats behind me's incredulity, of a systemic cover-up of the CIA's involvement in Australian affairs, which is treasonous under the new National Security Legislation amendments. Espionage and foreign interference, if you listen you might understand. Act 2018. This act carries a 5, 10, 15 and 25-year jail sentence for those involved. This cover-up starts with local Queensland police, that's you guys over there, and carries through the Australian Federal Police, ASIO, ASIS, and on to our Inspector General for Intelligence and Security, Margaret Stone. From here, the vapour of the cover-up condenses and involves former Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull, former Foreign Minister Julie Bishop, and current Attorney General for Australia, Christian Porter, and the Governor-General, Peter Cosgrove. Oh, it has a lot to do with it, I assure you. All of these individuals who stand in breach of various serious criminal statutes in Australia. In simple terms, the rule of law in Australia has faltered, all to cover up the criminal deeds of a past US president so as not to disturb the delicate balance of US and Australian foreign relations. In a few words, they sold us out. So again, Queensland Police, I address you now. Here is the intel of a crime of major drug trafficking in Australia. Does any single one of you volunteer to take this intelligence from me today and investigate it as is your oath under the Crown. Or you will again stand in breach of your oath. I'm not the one wearing the mask, lady. Or do you fear a foreign foe? The question, thankfully, for Queensland Police today was for demonstration purposes only and rhetorical. But I think all here have seen the point that I have firmly and decisively made. My point, ladies and gentlemen, is how we can protect our children if our own government refuses to even govern us under its own rules of law. Excuse me, Queensland Police, I feel offended. Could you please silence this woman? We thankfully have the solution, and that is accountability, both individual and collective. It is this very accountability that is the very difference between an adult and a child. The very accountability and maturity that fundamentally makes it obvious that our young children are too young to be learning weaponised, communist and highly obscene sex ed in our schools. Finally, to the Queensland Police, it is your role to ensure child grooming is not occurring in our schools. It is also your role to inform CIB, the AFP and ASIO of the allegations I have put forward today that amount to treason by some very well-known Australian personalities. This would be a bloody good place to start to get our country back, protect our kids and usher in the era of common sense and the protection of civil liberties in Australia. Most importantly, the human rights of our children's innocence to be protected, not bloody well used as a political tool. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Eliahi Priest. I love my family and my country, and it is time to take Australia back from the globalists, from the masked bloody bandits, and from Australia, not you guys, us is the lucky country. Our country is our opponent. So help me God. Thank you very much, masked bandits. But most importantly, you guys here, you are the front line, and we're growing in numbers every day. Keep at it.
Thank you very much, Eliahi. Very, very well spoken, mate.